There is an old societal reflex that blames a troubled marriage entirely on the wife, assuming a good man was simply ruined by a bad partner. But history shows us the reverse is equally common. True intellect and wit from a partner can correct a wayward spouse with far more precision than authority or anger ever could. This 19th century legend from the Aithihyamala follows a woman with no systemic power who used a single insight to save her marriage and a royal dynasty. Meet the Edappally Valya Tampuran. As a powerful royal lord, he wielded absolute authority over his domain and his household, but he rarely spent time managing that domain. Instead, he lived miles away in Kalupada, indulging in a local romance and ignoring his lawful duties. Back at the main estate sat his wife, the Antharjanam. Following the strict customs of her caste, she lived a deeply cloistered life. For over 10 years, she had been left alone, entirely unseen by her husband. After a decade of this arrangement, a crisis emerged. There was no heir, and the prestigious royal lineage was on the verge of dying out. The Thampuran's relatives, a group of Namboothiri elders, looked at this succession crisis and applied a deeply flawed logic. They blindly assumed the wife was biologically barren and decided the Thampuran must take a second wife to secure an heir. A woman was about to be officially replaced and blamed for a biological impossibility created entirely by a husband who refused to live in the same house. The Thampuran agreed to the second marriage. However, he was too ashamed to travel back and ask his neglected wife for required permission. To avoid the confrontation, he deployed a delegation of Namboothiri relatives and his estate manager to do his dirty work. This group of men traveled from Kalupara to Edappally, bringing the weight of male social authority to deliver an ultimatum to an isolated, confined woman. The entire royal system was enabling one man's ego, allowing him to neatly sidestep the consequences of his own irresponsibility. The manager approached the Antharjanam's quarters, bracing himself for resistance, anger, or desperate weeping. Instead, he was met with total, calm compliance. She agreed that a royal heir was a necessity for the lineage. She had only one condition: they must check the astrological horoscopes very carefully this time. She admitted that her own horoscope was clearly useless. Since the Thampuran intended to continue living in Kalupara, she explained, they needed a bride whose horoscope contained a specific miracle, one that would allow her to get pregnant while her husband was entirely absent. With a single sarcastic request, she dismantled the elder's biological argument and forced the court to confront the sheer absurdity of the husband's behavior. The manager returned to Kalupara and relayed the Antharjanam's exact words to the Thampuran. The psychological impact was immediate. The Thampuran felt a mix of deep personal shame and sudden awe at his wife's sharp intellect. He canceled the second marriage, abandoned his local romance, and immediately boarded a wooden boat back to Edappally. Seeing the absurdity of his own behavior proved more effective than any tearful plea or pressure from the elders. Once home, the Thampuran found himself captivated by her brilliance and her devotion. He stayed by her side for the rest of his life. Within a year, a son was born. Many more children followed, securing the Edappally lineage for the future. This legend survives as a demonstration of yukthi, the Malayalam concept of applied logic and wit. It illustrates how influence can function without formal authority or a raised voice. The perfect timing of a well-placed truth can outmaneuver even the most entrenched patriarchal blindness.